Hi friends, welcome back. So today on Bedroom Chronicles, we're going to be discussing Group, How One Therapist and a Circle of Strangers Saved My Life by Christie Tate. And I have a special guest.
Hi, I'm Alonzo. I read the book.
So first we're going to start off by letting you know what our thoughts are on the book, and then we're just going to jump into mental health because it's super important. So Alonzo, what did you think about the book?
I personally didn't think it was the best book in terms of I think it's a memoir. So I think what she did was she was trying to carry over her experience to show that other people don't be afraid to go to group. And one of the major lessons that I learned in group is we'll only change when we're uncomfortable. So I think she was uncomfortable and she tried her best to try and find the solution to basically solving what was making her feel that way, and I think that carried over really well. It's just the way that she wrote it was not that intriguing to me, and I didn't want to keep reading it, so I just gave it a 3 out of 5.
Fair. So I give it a 4 out of 5, and my reasoning is I really enjoyed how raw and honest she was with all of us and sharing her life's experience. I thought that was really cool. But the reason I don't give it a 5 out of 5 is definitely the writing, like Alonzo said. It wasn't as intriguing as I would like it to be, and sometimes I would get confused about who was speaking. She wouldn't be oh, he said, she said, they said. So sometimes I would have to go back and read, and that would irritate me a little bit. So I feel that kind of just, that's why I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. But I still highly recommend this book because you just learn a lot of stuff about group and group therapy and how important it really is and how it impacts someone's life and just how important therapy is in general, because we are both fans of therapy.
I think it's good because she, as just someone who thought her life was fully put together, she knew that something else was up, and someone who was opposed to therapy, a ton of people are opposed to therapy themselves, so for you to finally open up and say I'll try this is at least telling you oh my god, there's so much more to unravel here, even though my life is as perfect as I think it is.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel a lot of people think that a major huge event has to happen for you to go to therapy. And I think this book or in life, you don't need to have that big moment. Sometimes it could just be something feels slightly off, or I just want to talk, and that's a good enough reason to go to therapy. So one of her reasons for going to therapy is because she had, her words were, I wish to she passively thinks about death, basically. So that's what her words were about, her life. She constantly thought about death. And I'm pretty sure at one point in the book she uses the actual name passive suicide ideation, and I was oh, what is that exactly? So I actually Googled it because I didn't know what it was. And I looked it up, and it's basically someone who constantly thinks about dying, but not committing the act of suicide, but just wishing to be dead, or kind of fantasizing their death and stuff around that. And I thought it was so interesting because I was that's something that I have experienced and never had put that label on. And I always thought it was just me being suicidal because I'm thinking about my own death. But it's different from suicide because it's I guess suicide thoughts, because it's not of you actually thinking about committing it, it's just thinking about death. And I thought it was interesting and important to know the difference between two, and that the fact that people kind of think that, I'm not suicidal, I don't need therapy. But even if you constantly think about death, those thoughts are not healthy, and you should see a therapist. Even if you're not going to act on those thoughts, you still should. What was your kind of experience with learning about passive suicide ideation?
I always categorize it as just depression. To me, when you're just constantly thinking about suicide, or just even natural forces killing you, is a form of it being categorized into depression. I never knew it had its own name until Jasmine had told me that that's what it was, and even my therapist had never mentioned that to me. She just also categorized it as a symptom of depression. So it's weird to think most people probably just think oh, these thoughts are normal, maybe everyone has them, but that's probably not the case. You might have it once a week, but sometimes I know with her, she was having them when she woke up. So I think it's good for people to know, people probably think whatever they're thinking is normal to them, when in reality it's these thoughts build up. So
And they're normal to have, but like obviously because a lot of us feel this way. Like I feel like a lot of people can't be constantly happy, but I think it's also important to know that these thoughts are not healthy thoughts. They're toxic, and they should be talked about with like someone as important as a therapist, because that's definitely a big deal. So another thing that I want to tackle about the book is confidentiality. So in this book, when she actually gets to group and she gets to that moment in the book, they don't have confidentiality in the way that if you go to other group sessions, you can talk about the people in your group. Or if you want to go home or if you were at lunch with a friend, you can use their names and talk about their life situations too. And I thought that was so weird at first, because I was like, therapy and confidentiality go hand in hand. But then they explained that the reason behind it was because you don't want to hold other people's secrets, because secrets can lead to shame, and that's something that they're trying to get rid of in therapy. Like you don't want to have shame, and you don't want to have guilt, and you especially don't want to have shame and guilt from other people. So I thought that was a really good way. But then there's still part of me that like respects and thinks confidentiality is important, and I think it's cool that there are groups out there that exist with no confidentiality, and there are groups out there that do exist with confidentiality. So Alonzo, tell us what your group did.
So the way that my group works is that we can't mention anyone's names outside of group. Even when I talk to my friends or whatever, I try not to use anyone's names.
He doesn't at all. We've talked about group. He's never used any names.
Yeah. So I try and just stray away from. I mean, my therapist has mentioned, like, even if you guys see each other out in public, even with my therapist, even if I see her out in the street, if I acknowledge her, that's basically inviting her to say like, oh, we can talk out. It's okay. But if she saw me out in public, she can't say hi to me unless I acknowledge her. So the same thing goes. If I see anyone out in public, even when I'm at work or whatever, I'm not allowed to approach anyone at group. Mostly because we're supposed to keep things confidential. And of course, we're basically there to help each other, but outside of group, things kind of tend to stray away. Like you're not supposed to be as intimate as you are in group as opposed to as away from it. But I do like the way that they were in the book though, because I like that whole idea of like you're breaking down the barriers so you can get more intimate with these people. And again, like she was feeling shameful throughout the whole book, so I think like it was helping her as well. So if she let more people in, she could also like other people will also feel like there's nothing to be ashamed of when you're in group, and that's the whole point of group. Yeah. So
do you feel like at this point in your life right now, do you feel like it's more beneficial having the confidentiality, or do you feel like you might benefit more from having no confidentiality?
I think, well, personally with my group right now, like we're all confidential, so it's fine. I haven't experienced like that intimacy in terms of like there is no confidentiality. Right now it works.
Yeah.
And like I only talk to you guys about group, so like there's no point in me mentioning anyone's name really.
Yeah.
Like you don't know these people, you're never gonna see them, I don't think. But there's no benefit right now. Like any form of group works.
Yeah. For me, I thought their no confidentiality was also really cool, because they are super intimate with each other, like outside. Like the fact that they like have gone to each other's weddings and like call each other, like I don't know. I thought that there was something really special behind it, but I do see the importance of having confidentiality.
I wonder if it's like, because you have Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
And like I wonder if obviously
it's different.
It's different, yeah, but like I wonder if the same thing works for other things. Like there's other support groups.
Yeah, like how she talked about like her 12-step program with like
but then there was
eating disorder.
Yeah. So that one friend was like, I hate that she's here. No one talked to me about her being in here with me. But again,
oh yeah.
And I was like, oh well, maybe it would have been better if it was confidential. But I don't think she's gonna go around telling other people about like her business. Again, like if you go out in the public,
in a gossipy way, like I feel like if you bring up people in your group and you're talking about their names, it's kind of not in a way to gossip. It's probably more in a way to like spread awareness and stuff like that.
I mean, the only thing is that we have a group chat for people who are in my group sessions, and we'll just basically it's just us in group without our therapist, so we can talk about whatever we want as long as we're helping each other. But when it comes down to getting like more personable with each other, and like if it's one-on-one, you have to watch kind of what you say before it gets into more of like a like you guys are friends and like you guys go out and do something, and then things kind of get like if it strays away from what group is and it starts to get more on a personal level, then you kind of have to report back and tell your therapist like what's going on, and if it's okay, you can talk to that person about what you're going through. Because if you're talking about something with someone and then you go back to group and then I was like, oh, I was speaking to this person about this, why didn't you tell anyone else? Like, why? And everyone's gonna feel like you feel more comfortable with that person than you do with group. And so basically you kind of just have to watch. You basically just try to keep it in group.
Yeah.
And again, like you can't go out and do certain public things with people in the group. Really just try and keep it contained. And,
that's fair. I feel like, yeah, it definitely makes sense, and I can see why it's beneficial. Okay, on to the next topic, body language. So the way that I'm sitting right now, this would not be acceptable in group, which I guess seems weird because it's like, what's wrong with the way I'm sitting? But acceptable in the group, like from the book specifically, because in their group, body language was a big deal. Like crossing your arms and like crossing your legs was not okay because it made you seem like reserved, and it didn't allow you to share as much. So it made you seem like you were hiding and that you weren't being open about it. And I always thought that was cool because I feel like body language kind of speaks for people's emotions sometimes, because I do think crossing of the body and stuff like that is our emotion saying we are reserved. And like, even though right now, like I'm doing this out of comfort, I feel like, am I being reserved? Now I'm gonna uncross my legs because I'm gonna think about it. But yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Do you think after you read that, you started doing it, you started being more conscious of how your body language was after you read that?
I think so, yeah, because I think the way I view myself is a very open, vocal person. So I was like, I want my body language to match that. And I feel like maybe that would make me feel more confident and more comfortable to share more if I've like seemed more open to other people.
Well, I think also when you're talking to someone, I always notice that like I would cross my arms, and I don't want to do that because then people think that like, oh, this person's not really interested and they don't want to talk to me and they're not open. And I was like, wow, I didn't really like realize how much psychology goes into it in terms of like when you are talking to someone.
Yeah.
How much they're just kind of thinking like, oh, this person's kind of like not interested in what I'm talking about. And like even like your foot placement, if you're talking to like two people and your foot's directed at one of them, it just means that you're more interested in that person than the other person. And I was like, oh, that's really weird.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna pay more attention to that one too. But does body language play a part in your group therapy?
No, because everyone in my group therapy, I noticed it after I read the book. I went to group therapy in one session and everyone had their legs crossed. So I was like, oh, even my legs are crossed right now. That probably means like everyone's kind of reserved. No one's really super comfortable. So maybe if I uncross my legs, people will think like, oh, I'm being more open. And that means that they will also like kind of feel a little bit more comfortable in group, so that they can be a little bit more open and more intimate in terms of whatever they're going through. So now I'm trying to make it more of like a thing where I'm trying to be the most open in terms of like vocalizing what I'm going through, or even my body language, where I won't cross my legs or cross my arms, even if it's a more comfortable position. I'm trying to let people know that whatever they're going through, they can talk to me about it, and I'll try and be as open with them as possible.
Look, we're benefiting from this book already. Pretty cool. So now I want you guys to be aware, or y'all to be aware of your body language. It's gonna probably be annoying, and every time you think about your body language, you're probably gonna think of us and this video and this book, but we're doing you a favor. So next topic is individual therapy versus group therapy. I don't really have a lot to offer because I don't have experience with group. I just have this book that has given me some knowledge, which is really cool. And then my individual experience with therapy also is just like counseling at school. I did here and there. It was never like I went to a therapist like consecutively. But Alonzo is has experienced both, and he's gonna tell us about it.
Yeah. So I started individual group back in 2019. Originally, I was opposed to it, just like the author was for the book. It was obviously like what everyone feels. It's just a setting in which you're meeting with a stranger and you're basically just talking about whatever's on your mind. And to me, that just didn't seem like I wanted to do that, because again, it's putting yourself in an uncomfortable position. But at the time, I wasn't feeling my best. Of course, I was dealing with issues of anxiety and depression, and at the time, I couldn't diagnose myself. But of course, if you're uncomfortable enough, you're going to seek every form of treatment to make sure that you're feeling better. So I went to therapy. I signed up and I sat down with someone, and only to realize that after a couple of meetings, I started to feel pretty good. I didn't want to go to my friend group, or I didn't want to go to family and tell them what was going on with me, because I knew that they had their own issues to deal with. So I thought it would be better if I went to someone who was more professional, who could deal with what I was going through. And then towards the end of the year, she had offered me group therapy, which I like. There's a good dynamic of people who they don't know you that well as much as your therapist knows you. So again, it's just like this generalized audience as opposed to someone who already knows you. So now you have like new people who are getting to know who you are and what your issues are, who have like a fresh new perspective on what you're going through, which I kind of like. So I got more into going to both individual and group therapy. So they both have their benefits. Personally, I like individual because it is a more intimate setting of you talking to someone who knows you and knows everything that you're going through, and it's kind of like it's not like you're talking to a friend, it's more you're talking to someone. It's basically like you're talking to your conscience. Your consciousness? I don't know. I think it's what it is. Yeah, basically you're talking to a part of yourself that knows the deepest part of you that no one else knows, as opposed to like a significant other or a close family member. So this person knows you better than any of these people in group know you, even though these people in group know you probably on the same level or basis as maybe your friends do.
Yeah, I feel like my closest experience to group is like I have a certain friend group where we kind of just talk about literally everything under the sun. Like no topic is like off limits. So I like do have a really good experience with my own personal group. We don't have like a professional in there to really guide us. We just share and support each other, and we have an intimate level through our conversations. But something that one of my friends in my like certain friend group, she suggested that, I'm gonna start asking if it's okay for me to, vent or share, because again, all of us have something going on in our life. And in this specific friend group, a lot of us have suffered from depression as well. So we don't want to unload in a way that's unhealthy, because we don't want to make it an overbearing thing. We don't want to make it overwhelming for each other. So we actually have started like making sure like, hey guys, like, is it a good day for me to vent today? Or is it okay if I do this? And like, if someone in the group doesn't feel comfortable, then like we can text separately and stuff like that. So I really value my friend group, and I understand that therapy is also expensive, and like not everyone's insurance can afford it, or you can't afford it out of pocket. So, or if you're not ready for the step of therapy, maybe try that out with your own friend group if that's something that you would be interested in doing and the other people in your friend group would feel interesting in doing. And I feel like definitely asking if it's okay, like consent is good in every aspect of life. So like just asking, oh, is it okay if I unload and do that? And like I think that's a really good step to maybe get you to go to therapy, and feeling that type of comfort and just having that extra support. Anything else to add?
I think also a piece of advice that my therapist had given me was, when it comes to sharing with my friends and my family, I always want to try and remain as open as possible, just to make sure that my friends or my family feel comfortable enough to tell me things that they normally wouldn't want to share. Like if they wanted to feel comfortable enough to tell me something, I wanted to make sure that they feel comfortable telling me. But I remember telling her, or my therapist, that sometimes I don't want to tell my friends something because I don't want to overbear them with whatever I'm going through, because I know that they're going through certain issues. And she had asked me like, well, do you want them to feel the same way towards you? Do you want them to feel like they can't tell you something because you have your own problems? I told them no. I told her no. I want them to come to me whenever they have something going on, because I want them to know that I'm always available to help them out. No matter what I'm going through, I want them to know that I can deal with that on the side, and I'll make sure that I'll try and help them out as much as I can. And she had said, well, you're only gonna allow yourself to be open and for them to feel that way towards you if you can feel the same way towards them. So just make sure that, again, consent is important, but at the same time, if you want someone to feel comfortable with you, you need to make sure that you can also be comfortable with them.
I totally agree. I feel like I definitely have that kind of issue. I feel like with certain friends, I don't feel as open to share because maybe they're just not sharing as much with me. So it's like kind of feels weird sometimes. I'm like, all right, so maybe we just don't talk about that kind of stuff. And I guess like that's okay. Obviously, like you don't, maybe certain friend groups don't have to be as intimate as others. So I think just, keeping it open and communicating with people is really, really important. It sounds silly, but so you saying like, oh, making sure you're comfortable with people. I think a reminder is good. Like just reminding someone like, oh, you know what, even though maybe I'm not sharing as much with you, like feel free to always share with me. So I just always want people to feel supported, and there might be some cons in there and stuff, but that's how I feel. I'm not saying you have to be the same way. I'm not a therapist. I can't tell you how to, I can't give you the best advice. I'm just going off of my opinion and stuff like that. And I'd encourage you to be open as possible with people because you don't want something like super tragic for you to start communicating with your friend group or your family or whoever is in your life. So if you take anything out of this video, let it be communication and therapy. I know I just told y'all that we're not your therapist and we can't give you the best advice, but we're about to give you some really good fucking advice, okay? And what is that advice?
You don't have to say yes all the time.
Period. Don't be the yes person. I know it sounds fun, you don't want to have FOMO and all that kind of stuff, but it will do your mental health dirty. And I'm speaking from experience because I feel like I've always been a yes person, especially with family members, a lot with friends too. And I think the friends is more of like a FOMO type of thing, fear of missing out. And it was really bad on my mental health. I always just wanted to say yes to everyone because I wanted them to feel good and make sure they felt supported, even if I felt like I could not do it. I remember instances where it's like, okay, my friends said, let's do a barbecue and then I have a dinner party at this time. And it's like, that's spreading myself thin and that's not good for me. And I knew that it made me so tired and so like just exhausted from having to keep up. And especially because, maybe I didn't want to say yes to one of those. Like I knew that there was one that I wanted to go to more, but I felt bad because I was like, I don't want to say no, I just don't want to be that person.
It's people pleasing. So all you're trying to do is just make sure that everyone's happy, and you're just limiting yourself. So you're not trying to be your happiest, you're just trying to make sure that everyone else is happy. And I think, so with that, how you're saying like you would try and say yes to both, that's what I would do. So like if my sister invited me out to like dinner or something, but my friends also wanted to have like go out for drinks or whatever, I would say yes to both, and then I would have to be like, oh well, I'll go out to eat, and then right after I'll just go out to drink with my friends. And then like I couldn't even tell my sister like I have to cut this short. I would just hang out with her, and then I'd have to be like, oh, I'm gonna be late to drinking with you guys. And it would just be like you're stressing yourself out, and you don't even have the energy to do both of them. Sometimes you only have the energy to do one or none at all. You're basically just exerting energy that you don't have. And I think like that's where like you're basically limiting the amount of happiness you have for yourself. So I think the main thing that you can take away is like if you don't really feel like doing something, you don't have to do it. And I think that's what she talks about in the book, is that she was always doing stuff to make sure that people liked her. And at that point, you're trying to make sure that you're good yourself, and you don't have to care about anyone else around you except what you're feeling, because as long as you're okay, everyone else is going to be okay. And I think that's one of the main lessons that I learned in therapy, was that you can't really help someone unless you're good yourself. So a takeaway is that if you keep saying yes to everyone just to make sure that they're all okay, you yourself are just going to drag yourself down because you're not doing exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, I agree. And also I think another point that she made about being like always saying yes was that she did it because she wanted to be likable. And I feel like in a way that can make you like not very likable, because it just, you may like not come off authentic, because it's like you're saying yes even though you want to say no. And maybe people realize that, maybe they realize you're being like just fake in a way, like you don't want to do something but you're doing it anyway, and maybe that could come off wrong and just like cause and create more problems. So yeah, truly just being true to yourself and being authentic. And, you know, if you really don't want to do something, like, we have to start putting ourselves first and be like, okay, I don't feel comfortable with this. This is not something I want to do. We need to vocalize that. And I think it comes right back to communication. It's super important, being like communicating with other people, but also communicating with yourself. Because I feel like sometimes we'll lie to ourselves and be like, it's fine, I can do this. Like, your body may be telling you, I'm exhausted, I don't want to go to a concert and then like go get drinks after that. Like, no, I'm tired, like, I don't want to do that. So listening to yourself too, and just communicating that is really important as well.
Knowing your limits and just boundaries in general.
Boundaries, my new favorite word. It's the word of 2021 for me, I think, along with no. So
yeah, boundaries themselves are a little tricky to come by if you're a codependent or if you have issues with people pleasing. Boundaries are something that I'm working on in terms of telling people like I can't do something, or like I usually want to help everyone that I can, but sometimes it's too much. So just limiting yourself and knowing like you can't spread yourself too thin, basically.
100% agree. Boundaries is something I'm also working on. It's definitely hard because saying no to people you care about is just something hard. It's just no to anyone, really. It's like you don't want to be mean. But it's such a powerful and meaningful and great word. No is a full sentence. Just think about that. No is a full sentence. That's so powerful. Like, just say no. You don't have to explain yourself in any type of way. It's just no. So our last topic that we want to discuss with you guys is homework. That sounds weird because first thing you think about homework is school, but we're talking about homework with therapy, you know? I never really had that because with my therapy, like, it was just, you know, singular type of thing. I've had like maybe one incident with homework, and it was like kind of confronting a family member. But that was really it. It wasn't really kind of an ongoing thing. But in group therapy with Christie Tate, one of her experience, like a big experience, was having homework. And a lot of her homework included other group members because they were a super intimate group. And, you know, they did stuff like that, and I thought that was really cool. So Christie Tate, she actually has an eating disorder. And it was still affecting her in her daily life. She had gone to 12-step meetings and did like stuff like that to really help her overcome her eating disorder, but still, you know, affected her, and it's a big role in her life. So her therapist had said, you know what, okay, here's your homework. Every night you're gonna call Rory, another group member, and tell them what you ate that day. And that just like really helped her with her eating disorder, and like just not all the negative self-talk that she would have from it and everything that comes with an eating disorder. So I thought it was really interesting because that's like, that homework is kind of a lot, especially for someone who has an eating disorder and feels like a lot of shame around it, for her to call every single night. But like, that's a commitment for both of them, and I think that's like really nice that they, you know, tied both of them into that together. So yeah, what kind of homework did you get?
So homework in therapy is just journaling. So basically what you would do is just, if you can't vocalize what you're going through to somebody, even if you're not with your therapist at the time, you'd be home and you would take a journal and just write down what your thoughts are, just so you have a breakdown of what you're going through and what you're experiencing. That way you could bring it the next time that you have group or individual and have a better understanding of who you are and what you're going through. I'm not very good at keeping up with it, but the days that I do feel like I do need to speak to somebody and I can't, mostly because I don't feel like throwing it on to somebody, or, you know, my session isn't, you know, for another couple days, and I need to speak to somebody, I will just jot it down. That way I just like unclog anything that is bothering me, and I have it ready just in case I forget to bring something up during my session the next time.
I feel like journaling definitely can be super helpful. Once you like really commit to it, I think it's really important to get your thoughts onto paper. I'm someone who has struggled with journaling just because my thoughts are always so fast and I feel like my hands can't keep up. But actually, that's something that I do want to give like another try because I do think it's important. I was actually telling Alonzo that what I've noticed with my like journaling is that I only talk about negative things. So when I'm upset about something or someone's like doing something that upsets me, I like journal about that. And then when that issue is kind of resolved, I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't need to journal anymore because I'm like, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm feeling great. And I'm like, well, why do I not journal my happy thoughts? Like, you should journal your happy thoughts because, you know, when you get to the root of when you're upset, why can't you, like, you try to resolve that issue. If you get to the root when you're happy, maybe you can use like the root of it in your everyday life, and then like that can bring more happiness into your everyday life, and you can have like more control around your happiness.
I agree. I feel like sometimes we just aren't aware of what's been boosting our mood, even if we've been having like a really bad couple months or weeks. And it is important to keep track of what it is that made you feel good for that one day, and probably just to keep at it after those next couple days to see if your mood can improve after that.
Yeah, so we're not therapists, but we are going to give y'all some homework, and it's going to be to journal, and not just about negative things, but about positive things, because I think it will be really helpful. And we also recommend for homework to buy this book and to read it, because it's great, and it can just inspire you, like listening to someone else be like raw, authentic, and honest. And that's what we really want you to do, is just be more honest with yourself and the people around you, and just to incorporate some of these things that we talked about, like communication and stuff like that, into your daily life. Just remember, like, healing is not linear, and it hasn't been for either of us. And we just hope that this was useful. So thanks for watching, y'all. We really do appreciate it. And thanks for Alonzo for reading the book with me, and for being so honest with all of you on the internet that we don't know. So this can be scary for people, but he's really brave and did it. So I'm really grateful for it. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see y'all next time. Much love always.